judge tonight has just permanently blocked the president's executive order that targeted a law firm which represented Hillary Clinton in 2016. The judge is ruling tonight that the president's order was an unconstitutional effort to amass power. And the ruling from Judge Beryl Howell is scathing because it says this, and I'm quoting now, "In purpose and effect, this action draws from a playbook as old as Shakespeare, who penned the phrase, 'The first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers.'" She goes on to write, "When Shakespeare's character, a rebel leader intent on becoming king, hears this suggestion, he promptly incorporates this tactic as a part of his plan to assume power." My legal source tonight is former federal prosecutor and a friend of the show, Ellie Honig. I'm pretty sure you have also quoted this on this show before. Am I right?
Yeah, no, I like that quote. I dug into the Cliff's Notes. It's from Henry VI, the character that says...
You like that quote?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it doesn't mean...
You're a lawyer.
Right, but it doesn't mean, hey, let's throw Ellie Honig in the river and all his friends. It means if you want to take over, if you want to be autocratic, if you want a lawless society, get those pesky lawyers out of the way. So I think it's applicable here.
Some people might say that anyway.
Could be.
Really, though, in terms of what this ruling means,
Yeah.
we've been watching this fight with the courts and Trump all along. To say that they're permanently blocking this, I mean, what does that mean for other law firms that are fighting Trump?
I want to make a public service announcement. Every law firm that fights this in court will win. These executive orders, and I don't mean to be overly dramatic here, these executive orders are wildly, patently, over-the-top illegal. They violate the First Amendment right to free speech. They violate the First Amendment right to free association because they punish people at law firms around these people Trump has singled out. They punish clients. They violate the right to counsel that people have, right of counsel of their choosing. It is no surprise this judge struck this down, and I think other law firms who are finding themselves in this dilemma should take a lesson from this.
But I was thinking, my first thought today was, what does this mean for the law firms that already settled with Trump and agreed to do 1 cajillion hours of pro bono for him, and also his aides made money in the process of brokering it outside the White House?
Right. The firms that have bent the knee here and entered into these quote unquote settlements, what I would call shakedown agreements, they probably are and should be feeling some buyer's remorse now. And the thing about these deals these firms have struck is they have no guarantee that they'll be protected from here on out. I mean, extortionists do not stop when you pay them the first time. What's to stop Donald Trump from saying, now I want more pro bono hours from you. Now I want more concessions about your personnel. So there's an interesting, really rift happening here within the big law firm community where some are digging in and fighting and others are giving in. And there's actually a lot of tension and disagreement there.
So friends, May 1st is Law Day, a day on which we celebrate the rule of law and its importance to a healthy democracy. And what a shining example of celebrating the rule of law we had on Law Day 2025, when a Trump-appointed judge ruled that Donald Trump cannot use the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 to detain or deport Venezuelan immigrants. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So friends, a Trump-appointed judge, Judge Fernando Rodriguez, just shot down Donald Trump's deportation illegality. And we're going to talk about main takeaways from Judge Rodriguez's new opinion. And then I have one action item that I will respectfully ask you all to consider. But as always, let's start with the new reporting. This from Politico.
I think part of it is like the court a little worried that this administration is not going to listen, and they're trying to find ways to kind of play out the clock a little bit. One thing, though, I do think is encouraging about the court's order that you mentioned, Ari, is, it was a 7-2 order. I think we ought to wonder why it wasn't 9-0, why Justices Alito and Thomas weighed in favor of the administration. But the fact that they issued that ruling at 1 a.m. and did not wait for Justice Alito to file his dissent, that came later, suggests that this court knows that the administration cannot be trusted. The presumption of regularity in the executive no longer exists.
So just unpack that a bit more, because when those stories break, Melissa, people say, oh my gosh, 7-2 and the Trump appointees, and that's sort of the headline. And in my view, as both a legal reporter and lawyer, is that is the first headline, because you say, whoa, 7-2 and the Trump folks. But then underneath that is, you're hard pressed to find other modern examples in the last decades where to still what you observe, the court looks over and says, not only the president's leadership, but enough people now in the executive branch who might not have been there in 2017, when you think about the range of purging, can't be trusted. In other words, are either bad faith actors, so they're going to find a way around complying, or are full-blown liars, which in court we call perjury. What did that mean when you saw that, and how does that affect what you expect the Supreme Court to do in the next few months? And then Mary.
So I'm done predicting what the Supreme Court is going to do, full stop. But I do think that did raise eyebrows. The fact that they issued that at 1 a.m, they have a pretty, I wouldn't say leisurely, but they keep business hours, right? To do something at 1 a.m. was highly unusual. Not waiting for a noted dissent from one of their colleagues, also highly unusual. It was because they knew time was of the essence. If they did not issue that order immediately, who knows what the administration would do.
In fact, just to be clear just how dramatic that was, on the Friday night, one of the government lawyers had said to Judge Boasberg, a district judge, "We will not do anything today, but I need to tell you we're reserving the right to do something tomorrow," which means 12:01.
Yeah.
So in terms of thinking about the sort of tick-tock of what was happening, the Supreme Court knew that if they did not act immediately, those planes could have been taking off, and that all these people could end up in El Salvador with the government saying, "We wash our hands of it."
We have a breaking news update on Trump's attempt to use the Alien Enemies Act to deport people to foreign prisons and all over the world. And it's very good news. Let's get into it. There have been several cases challenging Trump's use of the Alien Enemies Act to deport individuals to CCOT and to other places throughout the world. And in the Southern District of Texas, the court just issued a ruling on the plaintiff's motion for summary judgment and a permanent injunction. The court ruled that the defendants and Trump are permanently enjoined from detaining, transferring, or removing the individuals that filed the lawsuits and the members of the certified class under the Alien Enemies Act. This is a permanent injunction, not a preliminary injunction. This is basically a final determination on the merits, blocking Trump permanently from deporting individuals under this class to anywhere under the Alien Enemies Act. The court certified the class as any persons within the Southern District of Texas whom the respondents seek to remove based on the proclamation and Trump's proclamation invoking the Alien Enemies Act. So if you are in the Southern District of Texas, you now cannot be removed under the Alien Enemies Act. This is awesome news. The court holds that the historical record renders clear that the president's invocation of the Alien Enemies Act through his proclamation executive order exceeds the scope of the statute and is contrary to the plain, ordinary meaning of the statute's term. As a result, the executive branch cannot rely on the Alien Enemies Act to detain and basically remove people from the country. The court states that nobody is arguing here that Trump has the power to control foreign affairs or to control immigration and removal proceedings, but he's stating that, again, the way that Trump has done this, like many other things, is illegal and violates the law. The court holds here that if you're going to invoke the Alien Enemies Act, you have to give at least some facts suggesting that there has been an alien enemy invasion, and here Trump's executive order did not do that. The court writes, the president cannot summarily declare that a foreign nation or government has threatened or perpetrated an invasion of the U.S., followed by the identification of alien enemies subject to detention or removal, allowing the president to unilaterally define the conditions when he may invoke the AEA, and then summarily declare that those conditions exist, would remove all limitations to the executive branch's authority under the Alien Enemies Act and would strip the courts of their traditional role interpreting congressional statutes. So again, the process in which Trump is doing this, totally illegal. The court takes particular issue here with Trump's assertion that there has been an invasion or a predatory incursion, and essentially finds that there is no basis for Trump's interpretation of these words in history or in the law. The court finds that the activities of the Venezuelan-directed TDA in the U.S., and as described in Trump's proclamation, the court concludes that they do not fall within the plain, ordinary meaning of invasion or predatory incursion for purposes of the Alien Enemies Act. And again, the court issues a permanent, not a preliminary, a permanent injunction for these individuals and everyone in the Southern District that is detained. They cannot be removed under the Alien Enemies Act. Undoubtedly, Trump is going to appeal this final order. But for now, this is excellent news, and this is the biggest loss to Trump to date.
Talk about having leverage over somebody, right? It prompted this headline from Josh Marshall at his news site, TPM, quote, Donald Trump is now the mayor of New York. Quote, think what this means. Adams isn't off the hook. He's essentially been given 10 months to
In a moment that's dominating headlines and sparking conversations online, former President Donald Trump faced a major setback this Friday. A critical Supreme Court decision that didn't go in his favor. The ruling, which had been anticipated for weeks, delivered a surprise twist that has left Trump's legal team scrambling and his supporters reacting strongly. According to multiple sources, the case centered on an issue Trump had publicly championed, with many expecting the court to rule differently. However, the final decision was firm, and the reaction was immediate. Trump, known for his bold and direct responses, expressed deep frustration over the outcome, calling it unbelievable and completely unexpected during a brief statement. Across social media, users from all backgrounds are weighing in. While some critics called the decision a win for accountability, others see it as a signal that the legal system remains unpredictable, even for a former president. Meanwhile, legal experts say this could have lasting effects on upcoming proceedings and political momentum. Still, the ruling has energized voices on both sides. Supporters vow to continue pushing back, while opponents celebrate what they see as a...
Meanwhile, back in the USA, Donald Trump just suffered a major loss in court. Federal Court Judge Beryl Howell has issued a permanent injunction striking down Donald Trump's executive order against the law firm Perkins Coie. What's this all about? For those who don't know, Donald Trump has attempted to bully all of the major law firms in the USA to prevent them from appearing in actions against him and to require them to do work for him pro bono, that's for free. Perkins Coie was one of the few law firms to stand firm and refuse to kiss the ring. So Donald Trump issued them with an executive order, barring them from government contracts, entering government buildings, and speaking with government officials. This, of course, severely hampered their practice, so they took Trump to court and won. Now it remains to be seen what will happen when the decision reaches the Supreme Court by way of appeal. I think that the Supreme Court will do something similar to what it did in the Abrego Garcia case, and that is Rule 9-0 in favor of Perkins Coie. Why? I think that the Supreme Court has spent so long acceding to Trump's whims that it has ironically made itself easy for Trump to ignore, and the Supreme Court knows this. It knows that its own power is imperiled, and therefore the rule of law is at stake.
Dr. Ill with Patriots Corner with another breaking news story. A federal judge appointed by Trump has paved the way for targets of the Alien Enemies Act, AEA, to challenge the Trump administration in court. U.S. District Judge Fernando Rodriguez Jr. issued a pivotal 12-page order on Thursday granting class certification to a group of petitioners. This landmark ruling represents the first formal permanent injunction against the administration's application of the AEA. The court's injunction boldly asserts that the president is misusing this critical law. Meanwhile, the Trump administration claims that the petitioners are operating under the influence of the Venezuelan government. This development is precisely in line with what I have outlined in my previous post. The onus is now on the Trump administration to take this case to the Supreme Court and convincingly argue that their use of the AEA is lawful and that Judge Rodriguez may lack the complete information or authority necessary to rule on decisions of executive authority.
This is the big one, Harry. A federal judge just issued a permanent injunction finding summary judgment against Donald Trump on his unlawful executive orders targeting a law firm, Perkins Coie. This is part of Donald Trump's series of executive orders attacking law firms, some awful law firms, traitorous law firms, at least in my opinion, submitted they kissed the ring, and they tapped out. But there were firms that fought back, like Perkins Coie. And all the firms that fought back have won, but this is the big win, the big kahuna, the permanent injunction, the Perkins Coie kahuna. The judge here, Judge Beryl Howell, says the following. These words are so powerful, I just got to read them. I can't paraphrase them. You wouldn't want me to paraphrase them. Judge Beryl Howell says, no American president has ever before issued executive orders like the one at issue in this lawsuit, targeting a prominent law firm with adverse actions to be executed by all executive branch agencies. But in purpose and effect, this action draws from a playbook as old as Shakespeare, who penned the phrase, quote, the first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers. Citation, William Shakespeare, Henry VI, Part 2, Act 4, Scene 2, line 75, page 1. When Shakespeare's character, a rebel leader intent on becoming king, hears this suggestion, he promptly incorporates this tactic as part of his plan to assume power, leading in the same scene to the rebel leader demanding, quote, away with him, referring to an educated clerk who, quote, can make obligations and write court hand. Eliminating lawyers as the guardians of the rule of law removes a major impediment to the path to power. The importance of independent lawyers to ensuring the American judicial system's fair and impartial administration of justice has been recognized in this country since its founding era. In 1770, John Adams made the singularly unpopular decision to represent 8 British soldiers charged with murder for their roles in the Boston Massacre, and, quote, claimed later to have suffered the loss of more than half his practice. Quote, I had no hesitation, he explained, since, quote, counsel ought to be the very last thing that an accused person should want in a free country, and, quote, the bar ought to be independent and impartial at all times and in every circumstance, end quote. When the Bill of Rights was ratified, these principles were codified in the Constitution. The Sixth Amendment secured the right, in, quote, all criminal prosecutions to, quote, have the assistance of counsel for defense. And the Fifth Amendment protected, quote, the right to the aid of counsel when desired and provided by the party asserting the right. This value placed on the role of lawyers caught the attention of Alexis de Tocqueville, who, in reflecting on his travels throughout the early United States in 1831 and 1832, insightfully remarked, quote, the authority entrusted to members of the legal profession is the most powerful existing security against the excesses of democracy. That's an opening, Harry. Then she goes on to write 102 more pages and then concludes that Trump has already lost this case, permanent injunction, the executive order is declared invalid, a grand slam for Perkins Coie. What do you make of it, Harry? You've been following these cases very closely.
I have. I used to be a baseball reporter. That hasn't come up yet because this is a grand slam out of the damn park into the water where people paddle to get the ball. She totally slams them. I'll just add the point you made. You said at the end, but this is how the case opened. This is how it started. You know, when you're, running to see an opinion, which way it came out when it starts, no American president has ever, et cetera, that you're in a world of hurt. But it matters a lot. What she tried to do, look, it's a great brief there. Perkins Coie's had all kinds of help from within the profession. It's been the number one example in contrast to the Paul Weisses and the Skadden of the world, where the firms have come together. 500 firms signed a letter and in their support. And the former Solicitor General, Don Verrilli, wrote a killer brief. And this is what Howe, I think, is very clearly doing in that opinion. There's many ways. We talk all the time. And, I know listeners have become used to this notion of standing and a personal injury. And they've claimed many constitutional violations. How goes for all of them, and some of them are direct. You're hurting our livelihood.
A president beefing with the lawyers, that wasn't in my 2025 bingo card. It seems there's something wrong with Donald Trump because each and every sector, bro, is beefing with everyone, man. He's causing chaos in places that were, you'd imagine like a place with the still waters, but he would go in there and just stir up things. It really just says about his personality. Is there to cause chaos because, the other day, the immigration stuff, then also deporting people to other countries, the US citizen to other countries, that's not even legal, man. And just numerous number of court cases he has right now, and it doesn't do him a world of good given his history and just his rapport with the court. Many judges are obviously gonna rule against him. He's not gonna get a chance to win. It's just creating his own demise. I don't know what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section down there below. Share your thoughts.